The human being is a sexed being, in other words, a being born with sexual organs, but each person experiences and expresses being a sexed being differently. That's what sexuality is. But just how many types of sexuality are there? Let's find out. First off, let's define 4 very important concepts. I'm sure they'll sound familiar. Let's start with biological sex. The biological sex refers to the biological differences between men and women. Their genitals, their chromosomes, and their hormones. If you have a penis, testicles, and an XY sex chromosome, your biological sex is a man. If you have a vulva, ovaries, and an XX sex chromosome, your biological sex is a woman. When you're born, no. Even before you're born, those around you will look to your biological sex to see if you're called a man or a woman, and will choose your name accordingly. Second concept. Gender identity. It's a pretty easy concept. What do you feel like, a man or a woman? Feel like a man? Then your gender identity is a man. Feel like a woman? Then your gender identity is a woman. It's personal and subjective. But wait, gender identity doesn't always have to match the biological sex. So what does this mean? Well, the majority of men are born with a penis, but some are born with a vulva. Transsexual men. In the same way, the majority of women are born with a vulva, but some are born with a penis. Transsexual women. So what happens if the biological sex and sexual identity are consistent? You'd be C-sexual. Now you know. Let's move on to sexual orientation, which tends to be a little easier to understand. Sexual orientation is related to your sexual preference. In other words, which sex you feel attracted to emotionally, sexually, and romantically. If you're attracted to people of the opposite sex, you're heterosexual. If you feel attracted to people of the same sex, you're homosexual. Easy, right? Our 4th and final concept is gender expression. So, the way society sees it, the way that you behave should be determined by whether you're a man or a woman. So your mannerisms, interests, and appearance should be either masculine or feminine. For example, if your gender expression is masculine, you might like football, be interested in cars, and gesture quite roughly. If your gender expression is feminine, you might have long hair, wear skirts, like makeup, and be interested in dance. It's the old blue is for boys and pink is for girls. But now it gets interesting. Using these 4 categories, there's so many possible combinations of sexuality. A man with a penis can be heterosexual and feminine, or a man with a penis can be masculine and homosexual, or a transsexual woman can be feminine and a lesbian, or a woman with a vulva can be masculine and heterosexual. So you see, there are so many different combinations. By now you might have noticed that there are a few things missing. Despite the complexity of what we've already talked about, it's been somewhat simplistic, and there are many sexualities that haven't even been addressed yet. Why is that? Because what we've talked about so far is a binary system for sexuality, with only 2 contrasting realities, but humans are so much more diverse than that, and that's what makes us cool. So, now that I've got your attention, it's time to uncover real sexual diversity. Do you remember biological sex? A man has a penis, testicles, and the XY chromosome, and a woman has a vagina, ovaries, and the XX chromosome? Well, maybe what you didn't know is that there are a lot of people born with a sexual and reproductive anatomy that doesn't fit into this binary system. Some have a combination of both genitals, which could appear to be both a man and a woman at the same time, or neither a man nor a woman. Some people have an XXY chromosome, while others XO. All of these biological sexes fall under the umbrella term of intersex. So, biological sex is much more varied than what you previously thought. And what about gender identity, where I can feel like a woman or a man? That's not your only option. There are many ways to feel like when it comes to gender identity. It may be new to you, but there's a lot of people who don't feel like a man or a woman. Let me explain. Some people feel like both a man and a woman at the same time. That's bigender. Others feel only partially like a man or a woman. That's demigender. And some people feel neither like a man nor a woman. Agender. Then there's gender fluid. People who sometimes feel like a man and at other times feel like a woman. Other people don't feel like a man or a woman or even agender. That's the third sex. Despite not being very visible, these gender identities all do exist. It doesn't really matter what label you put on it, but it's important that you understand that gender identity goes beyond feeling like just a woman or a man. See, I told you things were getting interesting. I'm sure you've heard of the different dimensions of sexual orientation. You can feel attracted to men or to women, but you can also feel attracted to people of both sexes. This attraction can be stronger for one sex than the other, and it can also change throughout your lifetime. That's bisexuality in all of its dimensional glory. But let's delve deeper. You can be attracted to a person regardless of their sex and gender. That's pansexual. Or you could even be not attracted to any sex, asexuality. But that doesn't mean there's no love in their life. So it kind of creates a triangle of sexual orientation with all the options are possible. Where do you fit in? Gender expression is the same. There's a huge range of options. It's kind of obvious, but there isn't anyone who is exclusively feminine or masculine. Most of us have interests, mannerisms, and behaviors that are both feminine and masculine to varying degrees. See, our male illustrator likes to paint his nails. So let's imagine that masculinity and femininity are just two of the colors on the gender expression scale. And right in the middle, you have androgyny, because they have traits of both genders equally. Phew, that's it. Well, no, not really. To understand the true complexity of sexual diversity, you have to combine it all. Every dimension of biological sex, sexual identity, sexual orientation, and gender identity have to all come together to create a rich diversity of sexuality. Do you remember the question at the beginning of the video? In a world where there are more than 7,000 million people, it's easy to say that each person's sexuality is unique. So it's one person, one sexuality, right? That means that there are over 7,000 million different sexualities.